Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Adam and I am an expert mortgage broker, and today I'm going to be giving you my 7 top tips for first time buyers. 7 must-do things that you need to know if you're going to buy your first house. Let's get into it. Okay, so if this is the first time watching the channel, welcome, hello. If you find it interesting or useful, please do give us a thumbs up and subscribe. There's new content coming all the time, mortgage and property related content that I know you're going to find useful. So please do give us a like and a subscribe. Okay, so buying your first property can be a really daunting experience. I remember when we bought ours, things were a bit different a few years ago. You know, we didn't have any deposit at all. We used like a help to buy scheme that meant we didn't need any deposit. We borrowed 20% from the government. Things are a little bit different from that nowadays. But I remember that feeling. I remember the pressure of, you know, will our agreement in principle get accepted, and, you know, the legal process, you know, how long is it going to take? But then I also remember that feeling of getting the keys and going into the house for the first time, and I think we like ran around and like turned the shower on and sat in the bath, and then of course every time you buy a new house you need to have a takeaway on the floor of the living room on the first night. But anyway, all that will come in the future. So there's a few things that we need to do before we can get to that part. So I've put together a little list of things that you're going to find really useful. So the first thing on my list is an odd one, actually, one that not many people know about or think about, and that is being on the voters roll, the electoral register. And so being on the electoral register really helps your credit score, and it means that lenders can find you on the system. They can sort of see where you live. You're registered at the property that we're telling them you live at, and that just helps them know who you are. So as part of sort of identifying you and knowing who they're lending money to. So that's a really big thing. It's a good thing for your credit score as well. You'll see if you're not on the electoral roll, you check your credit score, register, a couple of months later your credit score. Now that tends to bring us to point number 2, credit score. So credit score is a hard one because it takes a long time to build up a really good credit score, or if you've got a poor score, it can take quite a long time to repair that. So things don't happen overnight on a credit score, and we need to put in the groundwork as early as possible. So lenders will look at your score. So you go on to Experian or Check My File. There's a few different ones that you can look at. You go on there and you'll have a score. It will give you a number. You don't need to worry too much about what your score is. Lenders are really going to be looking at your conduct. So you could have a CCJ, you know, 5 years ago, but everything's been perfect since then. Your score will probably be quite high, but actually that CCJ will probably have quite an effect on who's going to lend money to us. Not impossible, but we just need to think about who. So it can take a long time to repair damage on a credit score, and it can take a little while to build up. So the best things we can do is take a little bit of debt, a little bit of credit. So a little credit card, a small loan, something like that. You know, I often tell people to take a credit card from their bank, someone that we know there's going to be accepted. It doesn't really matter what the interest rate is or anything like that, because you're not going to pay it. And all you need to do is put a small amount of money on there each month. You know, a trip to the supermarket or a trip to the petrol station. You know, pop that on there each month and then pay it off again straight away. Make sure you've got a direct debit to set up to repay that credit card or the loan. Or you can't have a loan without having a direct debit, but just having a little bit of credit will show that you can get some debt in the first place, and that you can manage it and you can repay it, so that later on when we come to take a mortgage and the lender looks back and thinks, is this person going to repay this money we've lent them? Chances are, yes, you are, because, you know, you've got a little loan, or you've had a little credit card in the past. It's been paid on time all the time. That's really important. So that's really going to help your credit score. Be on the voters roll that we just said a minute ago. So have a little bit of credit. Make sure we repay it all the time. That's going to help your credit score. Now, if you've got bad credit, missed payments, late payments, defaults, CCJs, don't panic. That is not the end of the world. All is not lost. We might be looking at different lenders, maybe more specialist, maybe a slightly higher interest rate, but it's not the end of the world. And I'm going to do some content about what to do if you've got poor credit another day, so look out for that on the channel. But it's probably not a subject for right now, but it's not the end of the world, so don't panic. Okay, now the next thing we're going to need from you is some proof of ID and proof of address. Now it's really important that your proof of address matches your voters roll. So wherever you've put yourself on the voters register, the electoral register, that's where we need proof of address from. So you need to make sure that your driving licence is registered there, your bank statements go there, you know, you're on the council tax maybe. So if this is mum and dad's house, that's fine, you can be on there, or if you're renting with friends, that's fine. It doesn't matter where it is. The important thing is though that it all needs to match. You know, if you live with friends and you've got some things going there, but some things go back to your parents' house as well, or somewhere else, you know, it can be hard to track down, you know, exactly where you are. So we want to make sure that it all matches up. So the voters roll matches where your bank account is, because that will be on your credit score, you know, where your bank is registered. That matches your driving licence, that matches the council tax, and it all matches up. And then that will help the lender identify you. Proof of ID, that's quite easy normally, driving licence, passport, that sort of thing. Photo ID is what we need. It's probably worth saying actually, because a lot of the business that we do nowadays is remote. We don't see people face to face so much anymore. We'll normally do some sort of video or Zoom call. We'll send you something in the post to verify, you know, who you are and where you are. So it's just an extra point to mention really, just for our use. Okay, so the next thing we're going to need then is proof of your deposit. So your deposit, we'll talk about how much deposit you need another time, but in more detail. Anyway, 5% is kind of the minimum nowadays, generally speaking. The more deposit you've got, the better. But however much we've got, we're going to need to show evidence of that. Now, a deposit can come in various forms. So that can come in savings. That's great if you've saved up, you know, whether it's just you or you and a partner or a friend or whatever. Between you, we've got some savings. That's fine. We're going to need to see that in a bank account or a few bank accounts. It doesn't matter how many accounts it's in. If it's all in your name, it doesn't matter if it's in 10 different accounts. That's fine. Or, you know, in shares or premium bonds. It doesn't matter where it is if it's in your name. But we'll need to see evidence that you've got all of the deposit that you're going to need. Now, sometimes we will get a deposit as a gift, usually from a family member. Doesn't always have to be. There's a couple of lenders that will help us if the gift isn't from a family member, but some extra checks and things going on. But let's assume that a gift is from a family member. That's fine as well. Now, it depends on the lender. Some lenders have a form that they need to fill in, or a letter that we need to get. So we normally need to get evidence that that person has got that deposit to give you, and they'll normally need to write a letter to say that, yep, they're definitely giving you that money. Normally they don't want it back, because if they do want you to repay it, we need to factor that into your affordability and how much you can borrow. We'll come on to that later on, but that would be a factor. Now, that person gifting the money, that doesn't have to be the last time they ever see it again. They can have it back. You know, it's quite common for parents to say, well, we'll gift you some money, but you know, if you sell the property or move on, we'd quite like to have that back. And they can even secure that on the property as well in some cases. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a permanent gift forever. Yeah, not repayable is great, but yeah, it depends on who's gifting it to you and whether they want it back or not. Now, then the next thing that we need to do really, and we normally do this together with you. Obviously, you don't have to use us. This is an exercise that you're going to find really useful anyway, and that is a budget planner. A budget planner is going to list down all of the costs and all of the expenses that you're going to have in your new house. So we're going to go through things like your gas and electric bills, water, council tax. Then we need to think about things like food shopping, running a car if you have a car, or what you spend on public transport, getting to work and back. But we also need to factor in things like entertainment, so out for drinks, cinema, and all that sort of stuff. And we need that to be a realistic a realistic example of what you're gonna spend, because nowadays lenders can be quite generous. We can borrow quite a lot of money depending on what your income is. But that being able to borrow it on paper is one thing. It's really, really important to us, especially that we make sure that that's affordable in real life. You might be able to borrow £400,000 on paper, but what if interest rates go up a little bit? Could we cope with that in a couple of years' time? If your interest rate has gone up by 0.5%, could we cope with that extra monthly payment with all of these other things that you've got going out each month? So very important part of the process, really, budget planning, to make sure that you can actually afford the monthly payments and you're comfortable with the monthly payments. Now then, once we've got your budget plan, and we're going to need to think about your income and what income we're going to use. Now, again, this is probably a whole subject on its own, but basically we're going to use most of the income that you get. Certainly if you're employed, we're going to use your basic salary and overtime, commission and bonuses and things, allowances. People get income from all sorts of different places. We are going to need to get proof of that. So we need 3 months pay slips. If you're employed, you have a job, we're normally going to need 3 months pay slips, especially if you've got bonus and overtime. We're usually going to average those out. If you get annual bonuses, which a lot of people do, we'll normally need the last couple of annual bonus payments. So if you've had an annual bonus payment recently and then the same the previous year, we'll need that pay slip from the previous year to show that annual bonus. Most lenders will be averaging those out. So 3 months pay slips is normal, and 3 months bank statements as well, because we want to see that income that's on your pay slip hits your bank account around the time that it should do, and that it's the right amount, and that it all matches up and everything. Now, I say 3 months. Sometimes we might need more than that. We might need more of a track history, depending on what your job is and how your income is made up. It's worth saying, though, that actually if you've only just started a job, we get this question quite a lot. How many months pay slips do I need? Even if you haven't quite started yet, or you've just started, if we can get your employment contract all fully signed, there are lenders that will work on that. So don't panic if you haven't got 3 months pay slips. That's just the normal amount that we need. And then we need the bank statements to match that. But again, if you haven't got those because you haven't started yet, or you're just about to start, then that's fine too. We'll still need those bank statements, but we won't obviously expect your salary to show on there. It's also quite common rather for people to be self-employed, and so if you're self-employed, we'll need slightly different things. Again, this is a whole subject on its own, but there's some documents that you can just download from the HMRC gateway to give us as proof of your self-employed income, tax calculations basically. So we're going to want to know your net profit or your salary and dividends if you have a limited company. There are some lenders that look at company profits as well, but we're going probably a bit deep for this video on that, so we'll talk about that another time. So if you're self-employed, we're going to want slightly different figures. We're still going to want 3 months bank statements, probably want 3 months business bank statements as well. If that's a different account that you have money paid into for work, probably going to want to see those as well. Then the last thing that we're going to need to factor in is any other commitments that you've got. So commitments come in the form of loans, credit cards, car finance. Lots of people forget about car finance being a commitment. We talk to people about loans and debts and credit cards and things there. That's fairly common. But then people forget to factor in that actually they've got a car payment, because so many people have a car payment these days. That's probably, this isn't car buying advice, but that's how most people tend to buy a new car. So lots of people have car finance. That does count as a commitment. We're going to need to factor in the monthly payment. If it's a PCP, not too concerned about what the balloon payment is. It will often show as a bigger amount on your credit score than your normal monthly payment would suggest. But that's the monthly payment we're interested in. So between your commitments, your loans, debts, credit cards, car payments, and then your income, that's going to go together to work out how much we can borrow. So how much we can borrow on paper, as long as realistically in real life we can afford that as well. That'll be your maximum borrowing amount. And different lenders will lend different amounts, so some lenders will be more generous than others. So there's lots of different factors to consider. But generally speaking, once we've got all of that information in place, we can then work out how much you can borrow. And there's calculators you can use online, but I would say that with a word of warning. It's very easy to put in the wrong information on those types of calculator yourself. So you really should be speaking to a mortgage broker. It doesn't have to be us, obviously. I'm going to put a link down to our website for you, so if you'd like to speak to us, you can. We'd love to help, obviously. But the main thing is, as long as you speak to a mortgage broker, they'll be able to help you look at all the different lenders that are available and what the best options are for you. Now, in the next video, we are going to talk about the application process. So that'll be online soon, depending when you're watching this video. It may already be on there. So I'll try and put a link in there in the comments to how we do a mortgage application, what we need and what the process is, timescales and things. So that's going to help you on your next step of your journey. So as I said at the start, if you found this useful, I hope you have, please give us a thumbs up. If you've got questions, please do put them in the comments or you can contact us through our website anyway. There's a link on there as well. So questions, comments, please feel free. And while you're there, subscribe to the channel and you won't miss another video. Hope you found that useful. I'll look forward to speaking to you again really soon. Take care.